All right. I want to welcome everybody. I am Paula Ludwig with the Atlantic Institute. We are pleased to be doing this finger knitting with LaRahna. But before we do that, we are going to watch a short video about the Atlantic Institute. Just be aware that we do one of these classes every month, that it's a different kind of cultural creation. June, we're doing wood burning. July, we're going to do cakes decorating. But we have all sorts of different things. We also do cuisine of different cultures, which is foods from all over the country. You can sign up for them as well. You can go to our website, atlanticinstitutesc.org, and you can sign up for our stuff as well, as we do have them on Eventbrite. All right, I am going to attempt to play my video now. Share screen.
The Atlantic Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting harmonious coexistence of various cultures, faiths, and backgrounds. Seek this goal through peaceful dialogue, education initiatives, and community organization. Our dialogue events bring together experts, community and faith leaders, and knowledge seekers. We feel dialogue is the most important element of peaceful coexistence, so we try and maintain several panel discussions, TED Talk events, and book clubs throughout the year. These events touch on social issues, race relations, and cultural understanding, and are a mainstay of our programming. The Atlantic Institute's education events are extremely important to our mission of understanding. We want to promote socially forward critical thinking for students of all ages. To that end, we have developed programs that seek to grow the creative spirit of students and help them think about their communities and the world around them. Our Future Leaders of Dialogue event brings together nominated elite students to learn from each other, as well as political and business leaders. Our art and essay contest gives students a theme about important societal issues and allows them to create wonderful works of art and writing while steering their minds towards improving their world. We're always seeking ways to educate youth and adults in order to make a peaceful world for all of us. Our community events are designed to transform neighbors into friends and groups of people into a community. By associating with other nonprofits or by our own initiative, we are always trying to discover new avenues to improve our neighborhoods, places of worship, and community centers. We host cooking demonstrations of food from other cultures, work with various nonprofits to help elevate the work of others, and try to find a way to make the lives of those who are disenfranchised or marginalized better. Building a more peaceful world starts in our backyards, so we are dedicated to improving our communities and associations. The Atlantic Institute is always seeking like-minded volunteers and collaborators. If you would like to learn more, find volunteer opportunities, or just want to chat with our staff, please visit our website at www.atlanticinstitutesc.org or follow us on Facebook. We will never run out of fun, educational, peaceful events. So come, join us to help make this world a better place, full of understanding and community.
All right. All right. We're going to start in just a couple minutes. So we like to audit our events to see how they're doing. And one of the things we do is to see where everybody's coming from. So if you could, in the chat at some time during this class, just throw in your name and where you're from. If you're in the United States, just put the city and state. If you're out of the United States, the city and country would be awesome. I thank everybody for participating and coming. And I am now going to mute everybody and then turn this over to LaRahna, and I'm going to make her the focal point and unmute her.
Welcome this afternoon.
Oh, sorry.
Looks like I got muted in the process. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Before we get going, Mary Boyle, I see your hand up. Look in the chat. If there's a question, go ahead and type that in there. It may have been about the video volume or something like that. So I'm going to put your hand down, but if there's a question, feel free to put it in the chat. With that being said, let me give my other disclaimer this afternoon. I am in rural South Carolina. I am the epitome of rural internet. If at any time there becomes a problem with seeing me and hearing me at the same time, you guys are on little bitty squares. Somebody do the big wave so that I know something's happening on the technical end. Can you guys be team players with that? Thumbs up. All right, I see a few thumbs, awesome. So today we're gonna talk about finger knitting. And let me tell you why this is so, let me tell you, as I'm pulling my things together, I'm pulling all of my supplies together that we're gonna need for this exciting project. Let me explain one of the reasons why this is so exciting. I have 3 grandchildren. And many years ago, right before I had the first grandchild, I decided I was going to learn how to knit and crochet. I was away and I went to a bookstore and they had one of those books with lots of colors and it said, learn how to knit. And it said it was for people 7 and up. And I thought, I'm reasonably intelligent. I should be able to master this. And it had yarn and some knitting needles. And I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? If I can't figure this out, I just won't tell anyone and I'll go on to find a new hobby. Many years later, a few years later, as I was beginning to take on bigger projects, I was on my trip to visit at that time my very first grandchild. And I had big ideas about making a blanket. I was going to get on the cross-country flight. I had hours and I was going to crochet. I was crocheting at that time this beautiful blanket. And when I got there, that beautiful blanket was a nice little square that was about 8 inches long. Well, it wasn't quite a blanket, but when my granddaughter saw it, she says, "Oh, you made a blanket for my dolly." Yep, that's right. That's exactly what I did, a blanket for your dolly. And sometime later, because I was one of those grandmothers, I didn't want to be called that G word, grandmother. That just felt old, and I'm not that old. My kids are, but I'm not. And so we had a conversation with her as a toddler about that time. And I says, well, we better figure out a proper grandmother name for me. And so we thought hard about this as these 2 people, me and this little toddler. And she looks up at me in the innocence of children. And she says, I think I'll call you Grandma Blanket. Grandma Blanket? What kind of name is that? And I says, well, why? She says, because you make blankets for my dollies. And besides, it makes me smile. Done, done, done. We made the official announcement to the family that my official name is Grandma Blanket. Now, years have passed. My skills have I've got the patience developed to make an actual blanket. But my youngest granddaughter, who's 8 years old, in the midst of COVID last year, tells her mother, I want to learn how to make stuff like my Grandma Blanket. Say no more, say no more. What do we need to do? How do we need to do this? And so we set up some video play dates. And I thought, why don't we start simple? I want her to have the best chance of success with being able to make something and feel good about doing fiber art. Maybe it'll pick up. Maybe she'll be one of these new young crocheters or knitters and make really cool stuff. And so we set up some videos and we taught and learned and we did projects and had homework assignments and came back and showed off our projects, one of which I'll show you today. And the joy that touched my heart was about a week ago. I went back to the West Coast to visit. And when we walked in the house, she had made several finger knitted bracelets and presented these gifts to each one of us, me and her two aunts, my other daughters that I took with me. And it just was a thrill that she and I have this really cool hobby to share. And so when Atlantic Institute asked me, did I want to share this with you? I said, absolutely. So today, we're not going to need much. I hope some of you, all of you have some yarn. Did anyone get yarn and bring yarn to be prepared for today's class? If you have yarn, I see some yarn. Joe, awesome. Anyone else have yarn? Then those of you that don't, you can use this video or other videos that'll be saved and posted later. And there's many on YouTube to talk about it. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you this super simple craft. It's one that you can take with you and make really cool things. And I'll show you a few of the things that I've made using this particular style of finger knitting. All right, so we're starting with yarn. Any yarn will do. I'm going to show you there's all different kinds, and these are just coming from my basket next to my chair, my current project basket. This one is a nice chunky knobby yarn. This is kind of your typical acrylic yarn. Many yarns, there's all kinds of yarns that are decorative. Some yarns are already multicolored. There's yarns that are using different kind of fibers, acrylic, wool, cotton, and blends, alpaca, all different kinds. You can find them in places as simple as Walmart in their craft section or Michael's. You may have a local fiber shop in your area as well. Any yarn will do. We're going to do this project, or I'm going to do some of the training at the beginning with just a single strand of yarn. And when you get your yarn, you can decide if you want to pull from the outside or the inside. There's usually one end that's tucked on the inside and one end that's tucked on the outside. I typically pull from the inside because it doesn't make as much of a mess with my ball rolling around. And the first thing we're going to do to get started is we're going to use one of our hands. And I use my non-dominant hand. I write with my right hand. And so I'm using my left hand as my foundation for my finger knitting. The first thing that I usually do, you can do a knot, but I just do it really simple. And I take my yarn and wrap it around my thumb about 3 or 4 times. Doesn't matter how many times. This is only to hold your project as you get started. So the first thing is you attach it to your thumb. If you simply want to hold the yarn, that's fine too. But I tend to wrap it just a few times around my thumb, or I make a slip knot where I turn it and pull up an end. But the easiest thing that I can show you, as if you were my granddaughter and I was teaching her for the first time, is take that yarn and wrap it 2 or 3 times around your thumb. So if you've got your yarn, go ahead and wrap it around your thumb. Okay. And then we're gonna weave this yarn around our fingers in our foundation. You always, always, always start with over. We're gonna do it over, under, over, under. You always start over your index finger. So you're gonna go over, under the next one, over, under the next one. Okay? Does everyone see that? Over my index, under my next let's see, let me turn it this way. Over my index, under this one, over the next one, under this one. And so when you finish, your yarn should be on the back side of your hand. You're just gonna wrap it around your little finger and link it under, over, and under again. So each finger should have a loop on it, okay? And your yarn should end up behind your index finger, okay? It's important to start over your index finger to begin with, and that'll end you at the right place. If you go over, under, wrap it around the back and finish going over, under, kind of like an obstacle course, okay? Let me see your hands if you've got yarn on it. Patricia, I see you've got yarn. Is your back in behind your index finger? All right, let's see who else has got yarn. Joe, Judy, Karen, I see you there. Margaret, Anita, Jean, Eric, I see you waving, looks like. All right, I'm not going through everyone because then I have to get back to my screen so that I make sure my hand's in there. All right, I think you guys have got it. So now, this string is behind your index finger. And what you're gonna do is take that string, flip your hand over, and you're gonna lay that string across your fingers, right above those loops. So everybody should have their string that's coming out of your yarn skein laying across your fingers. And every one of your fingers now actually has a loop on it, okay? And I usually hold my hand down like this. And once you do it a few times, you'll be able to do this by feel while you're watching TV. But what we're going to do is, and this is going to be the goal the whole time we do this, you're going to be taking the loop off the bottom. You bend your finger down over that string that's laying across it, and you pull the loop over and off your finger. I'm going to do it this way, and let's see if I can show you. I take the loop at the bottom, and I do over and off my finger. I take the loop on the third one, over and off my finger, and I take the loop on the fourth one, over that yarn, and off my finger. And so when you get done, the back of your hand should look something like this, and the front of your hand should be back where you have a loop on every one, and you have a string.
Could you do that again, please? I'm lost.
I'm gonna do it again for you. So your loop, your yarn is around your hand just like this, okay? And the goal of this is to take this bottom loop, come over that string, and take that bottom loop off. You gotta make sure you cross over that string that's laying across your hand. I'll do it again. Take the bottom loop, go over that string, and I just kind of bend my finger down and take it off your finger. There's my yarn that's sitting across. I take that bottom loop, hold that yarn down, and take that loop off my finger. And then the last one, I take the loop, hold that yarn down and over my finger, and that locks your yarn. That locks your yarn there. And if you look at the back, it creates kind of a looping thing on the back. Has everybody got to that step? Everybody got there? Oh, Anita's saying no, no, no. Anita, let me see your hand. You got there, Anita. You got there. You got there. You should have a string.
I got there until the last step. The last finger, I think I got it right. And then the last one isn't working.
Who is that? Let me see. Let me.
Marichka. Oh, wait. Marichka.
State your name again so that I can find
Marichka.
you. Marichka. Okay, let me find you, Marichka.
Yeah, sure. I'm the one in green, bright green.
Marichka, hold your hand up to your screen. And is this one hanging down at the back?
It's hanging at the front.
Okay, so what may have happened, do you see your loop? Do you see the last loop on that little finger?
Yeah.
Lift that loop back up over to your finger.
Is this hanging right? If it's good, then it comes off.
Let's see. Okay, if I want everybody else to pause. If anyone else had any problems like that, because it looks like you may not have looped your end string over your finger. So if the end string that's supposed to be across your finger, if you by mistake take that one off your finger, then you'll end up with that loop still there. So you want to make sure that you take that bottom loop and go up and over that loose end that's coming from your skein. So when you end, you should end with the yarn on the outside of your little finger.
This
If
is
you
what
had
happens when it comes off.
For
Okay,
some
so
reason
take it
she has her ending string behind her hand and not in front.
take it all the way off and start back at your thumb. For anyone that's having problems this far, because we want to make sure your foundation gets done, then what I want you to do is undo your fingers. So anyone that's having a problem, if it's not on all your fingers, start back with your thumb, okay? And so we'll go over this because this foundation makes your whole project. And you go in front of your index, behind the next one, in front of the next one, behind your end finger, and you come back and do just the opposite. Okay? And so you end up with one loop on all, and you've got a yarn behind your index finger. Once you're there, you bring this yarn back to the front. So you come around that index finger.
Wait a second. Something's wrong with my pinky here.
Okay. Did you go around your pinky? It's just
Oh, so I
a
have to go
weaving.
over.
So you go over, under, around your pinky, under, over, under.
Okay.
Okay.
I had it up to a point. It was just at the end. Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once we do that, we take this yarn. This is always our lead yarn. This is always going to be on top. And we go on top of those loops. So the loops are on the bottom of our fingers. This yarn goes on top. Each of our fingers now has a loop on it. We take loop over the top, over the yarn and over the top. We take our bottom loop over the yarn and over the top. And I bend my fingers down to just kind of hold this top yarn down as I'm taking it off. Let's see if I can show you in real time. I kind of bend my finger down to hold that yarn and take it off. I go take the bottom loop over the yarn and off the finger. So I always end with my yarn on the outside of my hand.
So now the opposites happened where I've only got, I went back. So I did the fingers, looped around, right? And now.
You didn't go every other one. Okay, there you are. So every finger has a loop. It looks like some fingers may have two loops on them.
Yeah, this finger, I don't know how.
Okay, you're fine. You're fine. Now bring your yarn around the front of bring your yarn around the front of your hand on top of the loop, on top of the loops, on top of your loops. Start with your index finger, take the bottom loop off, up and over off your finger.
And then it all comes off.
Can't see you.
It all comes off. Yeah, over, under, over, under. Okay. Loop is across, right?
The bottom loop on your finger. Listen, Marichka. Yeah. Marichka. There's a bottom loop on your index finger, closest to your thumb. Take the loop over that yarn and off. Very good. Do the same thing with the next one. Take it over, take the loop over the yarn, your loose yarn, and off your finger.
This part I get. It was when I got to the end that I got messed up.
Listen to me. You should always end with a loop on your finger, okay? Does everybody have one loop on their finger? Because we're gonna move forward.
Sorry, thanks.
Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs. All right. Now, that step is important because we're gonna do that over and over. I want you to take your yarn, go behind your hand and back around the front. And take the bottom loop off and over the yarn and off your finger. Take your bottom loop off, over the yarn and off your finger. Each time you want to make sure that that new yarn makes a new loop that stays on your finger. Okay? You take the bottom loop off, over the yarn and take it off your finger. Okay?
The first time I
Bottom-
thought we just went across the inside of your hand, but this time you had us go on the outside as well.
You're gonna go around behind your hand and over the front.
Okay, and so that
take
one
the-
string just stays there at the back?
I'm getting lost with her talking. Could you just show that one more
Yeah.
time, how you doing that?
Sure will. Okay. Take your yarn, always goes behind your hand and over your front. That gives you your new string. Okay. You take the bottom loop that's on your finger, go over that new yarn and take that loop off your finger. That leaves that new yarn on your finger. You go take the bottom loop off, over that new yarn and off your finger. You take the bottom loop off, over that new yarn and off your finger. You take the bottom loop off, over that new yarn and off your finger, and your new yarn always ends on the outside of your hand.
I've got that part,
Zed-
but on the back, then I have the one hanging here. Do we do anything with that or does that just stay there?
So first thing, I can't see everyone at the same time. So I don't know who's talking and I'm not sure what your thing looks like. If you will raise your hand, that'll help me to better address and see who has the problem, if there's any problems as we move forward. Don't pay attention to your back just yet. It takes several rows before you start seeing this come together. So far, is everybody got that technique down? Very good. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Like for you to do is we're going to do 10 rounds of that. So we're going to go behind your hand and back to the front. Loop, de loop, de loop, de loop. Loop, loop. Let's see if I can turn a little bit so that you can see my hands as I'm doing it. Bring your yarn back around the back and over to the front. And then you take the bottom loop up and over. That looks like that's a little bit better to see it. You take the bottom loop up and over that new yarn. And you may have to keep pulling that yarn to get it to lay down, and that's fine. You take the bottom loop up over the top. You take the bottom loop up over the top, and you always end with this one on the outside. And what I want you to do is I want you to do 10 rounds of that so that you can see as we get going. And you can do more than 10, but I want you to do at least 10. Now the back's gonna look like a jumbled mess, kind of like this right now. If your yarn comes off of your thumb after you've done 2 or 3 rounds, it's fine. This was just to get you started the first 2 or 3 rounds to hold your first loop in place. So if that falls off, don't pay much attention. It's not that important once you get 2 or 3 rounds. All right, so I want you guys to be doing, I'm gonna give you guys about 2 or 3 minutes. Around the back, over to the front, and then do your loop, de loop, de loop, de loop. Always taking your bottom loop over your new yarn and always ending on the outside of that. I'm gonna, thanks, Gwen. All right, so I'm gonna have you guys take the next 2 or 3 minutes. I'm gonna do a few rows, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scroll through to look and make sure. If you have an issue that you want me to come look at yours specifically, on the Zoom, there is a raise my hand thing. On mine, I touch my screen and it says more, and you can do the raise your hand. So do the raise your hand thing and I'll come look at yours. But for everyone, I want you to take the next, let's say 3 minutes and do at least 10, but you can do as many as you can do in the next 2 or 3 minutes. We'll give you 3 minutes to do as many rows, always going around the back to the front to begin. Take your bottom loop over your top and off your finger. Bottom loop over the top, off the finger. Bottom loop over the top, off the finger. Bottom loop over the top, off the finger. All right, take about 3 minutes, see if you can get at least 10 rows. Don't pay attention to the back yet. It's gonna look like a messy mess, but stay with us and we'll get somewhere. I'm gonna do a few more rows. And this is one of those things that you do it a few times and you can almost do it while watching TV, which is why this is a really cool project. And I'll show you some of the things that you can make. You can just about do it by feel. All right, I'm giving you a few minutes and I'm gonna begin to scroll and look at what you guys are doing. Patricia is doing her thing. Good job, Patricia. Oh, Joe, yes, you're doing it. Keep going. You can do a few more. Jean, yes. Margaret, yes. Marichka, you got it. You got it. Bonnie, I see Bonnie's pretty yarn. Carrie, I see your yarn. Athalie, I don't know what you're doing, but I see you there. Katie in New York, let's see what you got. Oh yeah, Anita, let me see the backside.
I'm kind of lost with my baby finger.
End up, Anita.
I'm a little lost with my baby finger. My baby finger has 2 rows instead of the one when every other one has 1.
The bottom one and take it over the top. Take the bottom loop and just take the bottom loop and take it over the top. Do you now have 1 loop on each hand? Take your yarn, go around the back and bring it around the front. Round the back and to the front, Anita. Take your yarn down your back of your hand and to the front. And take 1 loop.
Anita, wait a minute, let me see. Get it down. I'm doing it like this.
Yep, now take your index finger, take that loop over that yarn. There you go. Do the next one, just like.
Is that bunch supposed to be there?
Keep going. Do the last finger. Do your last finger. I'm watching you, Anita. There you go. Round the back and to the front and do it again, Anita. You got it. Okay. Get your 10 rows in, Anita. You got it. You got it. Let me see who else is
10 rows.
Do at least 10 rows, and I'll show you why in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see if there's anybody else that I need to check in on. All right, get your 10 rows. I'm seeing most of you have a decent number of rows for us to go on. All right, Patricia, you're doing it. So now the back of your hand should be getting a little bit long, but it looks all jumbled up like a tangled up yarn mess that is not anyone's favorite thing, probably. What I want you to do, this is where the magic starts happening. There's your tail in yarn that you started with. Does everybody have that? Yep, good job, Patricia. Patricia's done way more than 10 rows, and that is fine. The very end, what I want you to do is gently begin to pull it. And what you should end up with is a nice chain. Okay, there you go.
That's amazing.
I know, it's like magic, isn't it? Here's where the fun comes in. Because the next thing, anytime you pull out and start one of these projects, the first thing you have to figure out is what you're gonna make. Now, You could take and do this with the entire chain. Anita, keep going. Make sure that you don't forget to do your last one. You were stopping before you got to your fourth finger. Just keep going over, and make sure you do that last one. Sometimes it bunches up between your fingers. So if you're looking at it this way, you may have several stitches right behind. But if you simply give it a little pull, it'll pull your knitting down and you see it begin to take shape. Is everyone seeing that? And so this is your foundation. We really could stop the class right now, but there's a few more pointers I want to give you before I set you off to creating. As you can see, some of the others, if you scroll through and see some of the other videos, many of them now have a long chain going on. So there's a few things that I want to talk about, like finger knitting is actually using your fingers. And what happens if you have to go do something in the middle of making this chain that I'm going to tell you what we can do with later. So there's a couple of tricks I have figured out in my finger knitting that saves my project if I've got to go do something before I use up my yarn. One of the things that I do, if I'm just doing something nearby, I'll take my finger knitting and I'll push all of my loops down to the end, and I'll just go do what I need to do if it's close by. I'll just pick up my yarn if I've got to go get my phone or something like that. And those things fit securely on there. But what if I want to go make lunch or have to leave? I have this really sophisticated tool that I use. And I use it over and over again until I break it, and then I go get a new one. And I want to share that tool with you. Does anyone know what this is? This is my magic tool. If you notice, just like my hand, it too has 4 fingers. Are you getting the gist of what I do? And what I do is I always, so that I can keep it straight in my mind and remember, I think of this fork, the curved side is like the inside of my hand. And then that way I know that this is what it looks like. And what I do is I take, and each loop gets his own little finger. Do 1, and then I do 2. And I'm trying to do this and show the camera. 3, and 4. So each loop gets a finger, and then I can simply, I usually put my thumb on it and wiggle my fingers out. Hold on. I had one of them, I pulled them really tight. And so trying to wiggle it and show you. And so what I end up with is my yarn still on the outside edge of my hand, but I now have my loops on my fork. And what I usually do is take that fork and go stick it in a potted plant or something like that, something that'll hold it firm, because I don't want those loops to fall off. And then when I'm ready to begin my project again, remember, this is the inside of your hand. So you want to make sure that the inside of your hand is what you use to take those loops back off. I sometimes will start with the small finger and then make sure that I put my fingers in the loops and kind of hold them down. Let's see, I take it like this and I put the loops with my fingers underneath these loops. 3 and 2. I get them on there and I kind of slide my magic tool out, and I end up with those loops right back on my hand. Again, my yarn at the end of my little finger. And we go round and round and round and round, loop it around the back, back over the front, round and round and round and round. And what you want to do is you want to get your chain as long as your project dictates. Now, let's talk about the kinds of things you can make. And I'll tell you about some of the projects I do for different times of the year and different kinds of gifts that I make using finger knitting. It's a really fast project. So now I've got my magic tool holding my project there so that I can show you some other things. When my granddaughter and I did this class together, our video class, she and I did the training just like I've shared with you. And then she had to go create something and I had to go create something. And we met the next week and shared our creations. And so what I did, I looked around in my craft stuff, saw what I could find, and I did several things. What I did first was I made mine using 2 strings held together. As you can see, I used the orange and the kind of a brown, and I made a very short chain. I then tied it together and I left a fringe on the end. And what that created was a really cool bracelet. Then I made a chain that was a little bit longer, about, oh, let's see, let me move my technology, about 8 inches. So not much longer. And as you can see, it didn't take that long, but I started and left my ends long at the beginning and long at the end. And then I was able to put and tie those together with a fringe at the end. I then found a medallion among my craft things that I thought was really cool and that would really impress my granddaughter. And I took some yarn in both of the colors and I tied that very tight. And what I did was I left a couple of those yarns, a couple of those ends down so that it made it into a fringe. And what I ended up with was this really cool, kind of chunky necklace with a medallion and matching bracelet. And she thought that was pretty cool. You could make this as long as you wanted to. You could make it longer so that it's thicker all the way around. I just wanted it to be kind of just a little accent necklace for the fashion people. And you could do this in all kind of colors. So that's one of the things that I actually did with my finger knitting. And in a few minutes, I'm going to show you how you end the project. But I want to show you just a few other things that I've done with this very simple, super fast knitting project. One of the other things that I did was, if you go to the yarn store, you can find skeins in all different colors and textures. And during the winter months, what I do is I find yarns that I like. Let's see. And I take and I use the whole thing. And what I end up with, and I'm showing you some of the colors. Some of the yarns that I use are multicolor yarns that give you really cool patterns with not a lot of work. But what I end up with is this long, 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 kind of like a string. And what I do is I take, and if you've ever rolled up an extension cord, this is kind of my method. Roll, 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 roll. And I make really cool gifts for wintertime, because what you end up with is a really neat scarf that's super warm, that's super easy, that's very pretty, but that can be worn in many different ways. That's my simple roll it up kind of scarf. I take it and I can take the ends, and the ends can be just doubled and doubled, and you end up with another scarf that lets you do a pull through like this, or you do other kinds of interesting things like take it and twist it, and it becomes another really cool way of wearing that as an accent scarf. Okay. And then when it's done with yarns that have texture or colors, you end up with something that's not just as simple as the solid colors, although those are wonderful too, but you can do things that have the multicolors. And so one of the projects we did one week was a multi-tiered necklace that you can use different styles of yarns and be able to make. And it just makes a really cool, neat, interesting accessory that you made with your very own hands. Now, before I set you off and leave you to your crafting, let's talk about how to end the end of your knitting chain for finger knitting. Got my handy dandy tool, gonna put these back on my fingers and show you how you actually finish so that you can get this off of your fingers, okay? So bear with me while I put it back on my fingers and show you how to close out your thing. I hope your creativity is spinning. I hope the wheels of creativity are spinning in your mind on all kind of cute things. If you go on places like YouTube or Pinterest, there's videos of using this to make baskets, other kinds of accessories, headbands, all kinds of things that you can do with this. Some of them require a little bit of sewing to stitch things together. You can actually use it to knit something chunky. You can make this, it's nice and thick. And then once you get done, use this as your yarn to knit something else and it'll make it thicker. There's videos that'll show you how to make wider things if you wanted to make a wider scarf using your finger knitting. This will give you the foundation so that when you see those videos, you know how to get it started and you'll understand. I've seen placemats, coasters, all kinds of things that you take this and you weave it in and you use your sewing needle. You can use your sewing needle with yarn or with thread and you end up with a coaster or a placemat or baskets or other kinds of things that you build using this cord. So let's say you've got your chain, you're gonna make your cute necklace, you've made your chain. So this one's not super long like the other scarves, but this is about, let's see, probably about 6 feet long. And as you go each time, you wanna kind of tug your thing because it stretches it out and you'll see how long it is. But let's say you're ready to end this project. And so what I usually do is I usually go from my hand and I give myself maybe about 12 inches. And I cut or break my yarn. More often than not, I just simply snap it. If I don't have scissors nearby or don't feel like it. The other tool that I use very often in my yarn craft is a fingernail clipper. The simple old-fashioned fingernail clippers that can fit on your keychain, especially if you take your crafts with you, is a neat little way to be able to knit and cut yarn. So let's say we're ready to finish this project. Now what do I do so that it doesn't unravel? If you were to take your hands out of these loops, the entire thing would just unravel, and we want to stop that from happening. So here's what I do. I take this yarn, and I'll get to that question in just 1 second, Eric. Let me show everyone how to finish this off, and then I'll come back and we'll have just a few minutes to ask questions. I take this yarn, I come around the front, and you can do this without a needle or anything else. But the goal is to get this yarn into every single one of the loops. So I take the end of my yarn and I just tuck it under that loop on the first one. I do mine under the second one. I take that yarn, tuck it under the third one, and I take that yarn off of under the fourth one. And then once I've tucked it under each one of them, and it doesn't really matter which direction, I take everything off of my fingers. And what I do then is pull that tight. And what that does is that knots all of the end of those. And I have a project where my ends are all finished off. From there, you can finish your creation. This one, I only did about 15 or 20 rows. It's maybe about 15 or 16 inches long. I'm taking my ends and just tying my two ends together. If I had my scissors with me, I would clip those ends nice and close, but I'm not. And what I ended up with is something that's just about the length of a necklace. If you had a simple charm or some other kind of creation that you can add to that particular length gives you just about enough to make a really nice kind of collar length necklace. If you go longer, you can make a longer necklace or one that you can loop around like you would a long chain of pearls. And that is finger knitting. If my granddaughter can do it, I know you can too. And think of all kind of really cool, neat things that you can make. So now, questions. Eric, I think you had a question. Let's take questions now to make sure that we set you up for success. Eric and then Anita. Eric, can you unmute and ask your question? If Eric is speaking, I can't hear him. While Eric is working on his microphone, I see Anita's hand up. Anita, if you need to unmute, ask a question.
I just need to know how to take this off of my hand. I just got lost and I just try to do it on my own. So this is where I'm at.
So take your bottom, the string that's coming out of your bottom, the string, go ahead and take your string off your thumb. Go ahead and take that off. You don't need that anymore. Take it off your thumb, just your thumb. Just your thumb, Anita. Take it off your thumb. Now, the string at the bottom that's hanging at the bottom of your project, pull that string at the bottom so it stretches out your project. Pull the string at the bottom.
The one I took off my thumb or the other one?
It's the other one, the one at the bottom.
This one.
Uh-huh. Pull the short one. Pull, pull, pull. Do you see your thing creating before your eyes? Do you see it?
Oh, okay, yes.
There you go. See, the light bulb's on. Now, take your end string and go under every single loop with your end. Go under the first one, under the second finger, under the third.
Starting with the thumb, or start with the baby finger?
Where's your string at the end of your finger? Where's that string at the end of your finger? Your little finger. Where's your little finger?
Oh, this one.
Where's your little finger? You
right
got your
here.
string. Go around the back and to the front like you're getting ready to do another row. Now, tuck it under the loop in the first one. Did you cut your string, Anita? Did you cut your string?
No, I didn't cut it.
Cut your string, Anita. Cut your string. Give yourself about a foot. Okay. And then
I'm gonna let you take the next one because I'm gonna have to get some scissors to cut this.
Okay, or break it off. I see two hands raised. Let's see. That was Anita's hand. Huynh.
Hi, this is Helene.
Is that Helene?
Yes, hi.
Okay, let me see if I can find you, Helene. Go ahead and ask your question while I find your video.
Okay, so my video is not on, but
Okay.
I just have two questions. So, Rana, I believe you have experience in knitting with needles too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how with those, it's like when you cast on, you can actually cast more than like 4, different knots. You know how on our fingers, we can only do 4, but on the needles we can do more than that. So say if we want to do like a project that's a little bit wider, I just wanted to know if hand knitting is only limited to certain projects, or can you actually do the same projects that you would on if you were knitting with needles?
So there are some limitations because you only have 4 fingers. This process is something you can do if you had, let's say, a pegboard and you pretended like the pegboard was your fingers. You could do a wider thing. There are some videos on YouTube that will show you how to make this wider. It involves connecting, doing your chain and then going back and linking the last one to your finger so that you do another 4 rows and it links to that, but it gets a little more complicated. If you want to do much larger projects that this chain won't let you do, then that would be kind of a next step of fiber arts of really learning the knitting process so that you can do an unlimited number of links on there. A secondary kind of step in would be a pegboard. They have some of those hat looms, the happy looms or things like that. They're usually round or rectangular. Those are using this exact same model. So any of those pegboards that let you use this to make wider things or ones that go in a circle, you could make a hat. And so if you go to craft stores and look for those easy looms in either the rounds or the rectangles, those use this same method. You do an inner out, front, back, front, back, front, back weave, and then you come around and do this loop over, loop over. It's the same technique. So there are some limitations because this is like an I cord. It's only about this width. And so things that you could do this with. Some of the things I saw were cute little butterflies that you could then use as an applique on something like a picnic blanket or a hair bow. The butterfly could be attached to one that you did as a headband. And a headband may actually be, I use these sometimes, I have locks. And so my hair sometimes when I'm not on the farm is a little bit longer. And so one that's kind of short like this, I take, I'm showing you, I can use that as something that actually gives me a really functional kind of thing that ties up my locks and keeps them from being in my eyes, especially if I'm out working and I may be sweating and don't want the sweat to run down into my hair. So in that case, I take usually my short ones, I take them and I'll tie them. You guys are just kind of seeing real life. And then once I tie them, I just take my loose ends and just tuck them. And so I tuck that in, and what I end up with is a really nice kind of bandana alternative. And if you're one of those people that likes to coordinate, you know, you can do it in really cool colors. But as you can see, it's a really functional kind of head wrap or ponytail wrap. With my hair being as thick as it is, I can take that and make it into a ponytail wrap. And they're simple. Some of the acrylic yarns are really easy maintenance. You're able to just throw it into the washing machine and you don't have a lot of time. This makes really cool, fast gifts. You can take a skein of these and in 30 minutes, you've got one of the super long. And some of the ones that I make for the time end up being really nice gifts, a gift that you could make in about 30 minutes. And they can use it almost like a convertible scarf to do all kinds of neat things. And so it makes really cool stocking stuffers if you're thinking about handcrafted things for holidays or other events, definitely warmer weather events. But these are also things that I use to accessorize things like clothes. I may make a halter dress and you need some really cool straps. Or I make tote bags. You need really cool straps with it. These make really cool straps for all kinds of projects, straps for little dresses that you need a simple shoulder tie on, maybe like a halter dress, some of the pillowcase dresses or things like that. Athlete Allen, any more questions? We'll take just a few more minutes to answer questions before I let you.
Yeah, thank you, LaRahna.
Athlete?
Oh, right. Could you show how to finish again? I've threaded it through, but the picture kept freezing. So I've got the long end.
All right. So I want you to see Anita's hand. Do you see Anita's hand? Hold your hand up to the screen. She's taken her end and you simply, hold on, let's see. Let's see if I can mimic it. Hold on, let me, to where I can mimic it. You take your end, and you take that end and you simply take your end and tuck it under. It's kind of like you want that end to go under each of your loops. So you go under that loop and your end out. Once you've done it through all four, you hold on to that end and just take the loops off of your finger. And once you do that, you simply tighten it up and it knots that end and you're done.
Oh, right. Because mine didn't knot. It
Let's
just,
see what you did.
let's see if you can see in the picture. It just
Now,
literally,
if you pull that in tight, what happens? Pull it tight. Pull it tight.
oh, right.
There you
Okay.
go. You got it now.
Yeah, yeah,
And you can loop it back around and knot it one more time if it feels like it may loosen up. You can loop it
Right.
back around in there and just put a knot, and then that's it.
yeah. Okay,
That keeps
lovely.
it.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
very much.
Anita, I see your hand. Anita, do I see your hand up?
I don't think she knows how to take it down.
I made a
Hang
joker.
on.
Okay, I took
I'll
all the
try.
hands down. I unraised all the hands.
Oh,
Are there?
right.
Let me see. Can you hold up so that we can see what you've got so far? Those of you. Oh, Anita Williams, look at you. Look at that. Anita got it together. Look at that. That's really cute with that top you've got on. Let's see what else we
Thank
got.
you so much for this.
My videos is fun. Who else has got something? Bonnie? I love those Joe is accessorizing right there. Bonnie's figuring out what she's gonna make. I see. She's figuring out what she's got. She's got a nice looking scarf. You're welcome, Dr. Nan. Let's see. So you got to figure out what you're making, girl. Is it a headband? Is it a scarf? There you go. There you go. Tuck it in and accessorize, Bonnie. That's what my kid. Karen? Yes, Karen. I see the headband going, Karen. Gail? I don't know what Gail's going to do with it. I see her holding it. She's figuring out what she's going to make with it. Leonie, I like those bright colors. Gail B, think what you making, girl? What you making, girl? Gonna put it around her head. I got you. I got you. Uh-huh. I see that. The ends hanging down there in that bright, I think it's a bright pink. I see you. Let's see what else we got. Let's see who else has got something to show off. This is a really cool intergenerational. If you are as talented as a kindergartner, you can do this. And this, if nothing else, sparks that creativity in us that sometimes we lose. Leonie's got it. You could put little dangle on the end of there. You could put little, they got all kind of things at craft stores, or you have things around your house, little buttons that could hang down. I make other little things like this with old buttons on them. And for the big scarves, I take around and button that to the scarf almost like a brooch. And so there's all kinds of ways that you can accessorize these. And sometimes the simple colorings of them provide you with the kind of excitement and pizzazz. Many of them are different textures. Some of these have chunkier textures, as you can see. So sometimes the yarn that you pick can give you lots of really cool differences and variations in your final project. And so if nothing else today, oh, Judy, I see Judy doing it. I see Judy working that. I see it. So if nothing else, I want to challenge you. As grown-ups sometimes, we forget creativity is so important to our soul. They're fun little things, and there's so much joy for me in being able to see something that I've created. This is something that if you do it just a few times, you'll be able to sit in front of the TV and or a movie and do this almost without thinking. It becomes something that's just kind of like muscle memory, where you know you loop and you loop. I watched my granddaughter and she was just going, and it only took a few minutes for her to get that skill. I encourage you, you can accessorize with all kinds of other things or figure out other ways you'd like to do it. You can change your color. Is not muted. You can change colors by tying on another color to the end of your yarn. You can do multiple strands like this is. You just hold together 2 or 3 strands at a time, and it makes it thicker and chunkier and gives you other color patterns. Find YouTube videos, play with this, have fun with this. Thank you for letting me share one of the things that brings me joy today. We thank you for participating in the programming of the Atlantic Institute. Thank you for coming with your creativity and sharing that energy with me today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Paula with the Atlantic Institute and wish you all a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much. That was really great.
Thank you,
And
LaRahna.
you're very patient.
That was excellent.
Yes, thank you. I've seen LaRahna make one of those scarves at one of our board meetings. She just sat there and did it while we discussed it. She was very involved in the board meeting. Don't get me wrong. She was participating but I've seen her do it. And when I decided to do this class, I knew I was going to ask her to show us how to do this because I wanted to learn. So thank you very much, LaRahna. And if anybody else has any more questions, if not, we're going to end it here and I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks everyone for coming. See you at the next program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for teaching me something